Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you guys so much for all the love and support and kind words on last week's video. I don't want you guys to think that that girl affected me at all or, I was upset by the things that she was saying. Trust me, I get hate comments all the time. My skin is very, very thick. Transphobes do not faze me anymore. I'm sure that you guys have heard about the people storming the Capitol, all that kind of stuff. We won't get into it. But did you guys know that beforehand at the rally that Trump held, Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., I'm saying Trump way too much, ew. Donald Trump Jr. actually went on a little rant about trans athletes. You're literally leaving in like a week. Like, just shut up. You're not even, ugh. But anyways, for today's video, I figured we could take a quick look at Donald Trump Jr.'s rant about transgender people. In the rant, he mentions a new study that came out, so we're also gonna be looking at the study that he cited as well. And then I'll finish up this video by giving my critiques and talking about the critiques of other specialists in the field as well. I post new videos here on my channel every Monday and Thursday, so if you guys are not yet subscribed and you would like to be, make sure that you do that right now. Go ahead, I'll wait for you. Are you done? Thank you very much. And if you're already subscribed, I love you. Thank you so much. I see you. Make sure to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok to keep us up to date with me as possible. And I also have a Patreon, so if you guys would like to donate to this channel, the link for that is down below as well. But yeah, with no further ado, let's get right into today's video. Okay, you guys, so we're gonna get right into this clip, but I am gonna skip a little bit forward just because the beginning of his rant is really just not relevant. He just like tries to amp up the crowd and says, keep fighting for what you believe in. Don't give up on us. We had our elections stolen from us. A bunch of bullshit, basically. So I wanna fast forward to the part where he starts talking about trans people and the left's bullshit and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, wait a second. Is this yellow or orange? Is this reading as yellow or orange? That's definitely reading as yellow. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I'm going in rainbow order with my backgrounds. I did it for a while with my thumbnails. I would do like red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and then start over again with all my thumbnails. But now that I have these lights, I might as well do the background and rainbow colors too. Duh. Okay, anyways, let's get into the video.
Republicans, you get to pick a side for the future of this party. To all of you red-blooded, patriotic Americans, thank you for being in this fight with us. Thank you for standing up to the bullshit, right? Amen and a woman.
Friendly reminder, this is why we say viewer discretion is advised. This is live, raw, unfiltered. We just had a curse word go over the air.
I put it up yesterday. They spent money on a study that came to the incredible conclusion yesterday that trans women playing in female sports have a competitive advantage. No shit. Who could have seen that coming? I had no idea. I'm glad we spent probably millions figuring that out. Just like I'm thrilled that we spent $10 million to Pakistan on gender studies, because I'm sure they care. And billions elsewhere on nonsense. That is driven by the insanity of the left, folks, and we have to stand up for it. No one cares how you identify, but you don't have to do the nonsense that follows. And what I want to know is, in these sort of things, where are the people? Where are the feminists that we're fighting as men are dominating women's sports? Where are they, folks? We need to be the party of common sense. We need to be the party of reason. We need to be the party of our values that we hold so dear, that made America the greatest country in the world. And you guys are part of that movement. So stay in this fight. Stay loud. Don't be suppressed. Don't let them cancel you. Trust me, I've been canceled 17 times since I started this speech, I promise you. Once it happens, it's rather freeing, and you can kind of do what you want.
Let's just talk about it just a tiny bit, okay? He thanks his supporters for continuing to fight for them and, standing up to the bullshit. It's like a bug. I hope you guys are not seeing this fly around. Is that Donald Trump Jr. just trying to fucking mess up my video? I see you, bitch. But then the part that I didn't get was his joke about like, amen, and aid women too. I didn't really get that. I'm not a very religious person, to be fair, but having done some research, I learned that earlier in the day or earlier in the rally or whatever, a priest had said amen and a women, trying to be like inclusive or something like that. So he's just trying to mock the priest's inclusivity and call it bullshit and say that it's insanity to say a women, and then uses that as a nice little segue to talk about trans women, which again, I don't see the connection, but whatever. Did you guys see the fact that they had to literally censor him on Fox News? Was it Fox? I think it was Fox News. I don't know. I thought it was on Fox. Maybe it wasn't. But the news station that he was broadcasting on literally had to like cut him off and be like, just a quick reminder, this is live. Viewer discretion is advised. Like, yikes. He goes on to try to use trans women as an example of the left's insanity. Get this, they just came out with a new study and it came to the miraculous conclusion that trans women have an advantage in sport. No shit. Starts laughing and saying, well, of course, who could have seen that coming? Duh. We're gonna get into the study that he cited, but I am gonna finish talking about what he was talking about in his little rant that he did after talking about trans women in sport and all the money that we waste on, you know, determining that they have an athletic advantage. He goes on to complain about the millions of dollars sent to Pakistan for gender studies and jokes like they care or something like that. If you guys didn't know, Pakistan is literally the second to last country in terms of gender equality. So like the money sent to Pakistan, I don't know, like it could have been something for transgender people, but I don't think that's what it was. I think it was just something to help like progress women's rights. I'm sure that money went to waste. Yeah. Definitely. He finishes his speech by encouraging his followers to, you know, not be afraid to be censored because being canceled is liberating and he feels so free after being canceled. Okay, shit. Now you may be asking, you know, why does it matter? It's Donald Trump Jr., you know, his father didn't even win, blah, blah, blah. Like, who cares? Who cares what he says? So to me, it's important because he's furthering this misconception that trans women are, you know, dominating women's sports and they have this complete unfair advantage in women's sports when the studies, even the study that he cited, don't necessarily point in that direction. Back in March, Idaho signed the Fairness in Women's Sports Act, which prohibits transgender athletes from competing in school sports consistent with their gender identity, regardless of when they transitioned. More recently, Senator Kelly Loeffler sponsored S4649, the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, which would cut federal funding to any school that allows someone assigned male at birth to compete in girls' athletics. Nothing to do with trans men, by the way. It's just trans girls in men's sports. Whatever. So when Donald Trump Jr. goes out on the stage and does this rant about how, you know, transgender athletes are dominating sports and how there's studies that prove it, blah, 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 he's building support for these acts that do nothing but hurt transgender students. Now, I do already have a video titled The Truth on Trans Athletes, which I do think that you guys should watch after this video. Don't click off, bitch. Watch afterwards. In that video, I talked about some of the studies that are out there on trans athletes. So I'm not gonna go too in depth on the studies that are already out there, but I do wanna talk about the study that he cited in his rant. So the study itself is in the British Journal of Sports Medicine. It's behind a paywall. I didn't pay for it. I'm so sorry, but I did find an article that talked about it. So I'm reading off my notes right now, so excuse me looking over here. But in this study, it showed that transgender women were able to do 10% more push-ups and 6% more sit-ups in the first 2 years after starting estrogen and testosterone blockers. So if you guys know from my video on trans athletes, the most current guidelines out there are that trans women must be on testosterone blockers and estrogen for 1 year before they're able to compete at... Did I get it? For 1 year before they're able to compete, you know, compete professionally is what I meant to say. So in the study, it says that 3 physicians conducted a retrospective review of medical records and fitness tests for 29 transgender men and 46 transgender women from 2013 to 2018. The Air Force's fitness assessment includes the number of push-ups and sit-ups performed in a minute and the time required to run 1.5 miles. So the conclusion that Roberts, the person who did this study, came to was that for the Olympic level, the elite level, he'd say that probably 2 years is more realistic than 1 year for them to be on par with their cisgender counterparts. Now, I will admit that the research out there is very, very limited. We definitely do need more studies to show how professional athletes, how their bodies change when they go on HRT. However, Robert said that his findings do not apply to transgender youth and that a 1 year waiting period was sufficient for student athletes and non-professional leagues. There's a whole lot of people playing recreational sports and very few people get to be pros, so just let them play. He also said that he was flattered that Trump Jr. chose to recognize and promote our work. The shade. I love it. Which is interesting because in my opinion, the reason that he probably brought it up was to defend Loeffler and to defend these acts that are trying to be passed by the Republican Party. Roberts, the person that did the study, literally comes out and says, I'm definitely coming out and saying, hey, this doesn't apply to recreational athletes, it doesn't apply to youth athletics. And he also emphasized that the data he collected was on adults. He says that a transgender woman who transitions before or at puberty doesn't really have any advantage when it comes to athletic performance, so that young ladies should be allowed to compete with all other people who are born women. He continues on to say that there are definitely more studies needed and that, you know, his research is not the end-all be-all. And also, another little fun fact, he also denied that the Democratic Party, or anybody for that matter, had funded this study, like Donald Trump Jr. claimed. So if you remember, Joanne Harper is a member of the International Olympic Committee, and she's also a physicist as well as a trans athlete herself. And she's done extensive research on the effects of, you know, testosterone blockers and estrogen on trans women's bodies. So she actually responded to the studies that Roberts did and pointed out a few of the limitations that, you know, he may have missed, or they may have missed. I don't know if it was a boy or a girl. Sorry, Roberts, if you're not a boy. So some of the things that Joanne Harper pointed at that may be possible limitations of the study, with the lack of data on participants' individual training habits, as well as the way that they group the 3 different variable, you know, trans women groups. So this article says the tests were placed into 3 bins. 1 bin of tests that took place in the first year after the start of hormone therapy, 1 bin of tests that took place between 1 to 2 years of hormone therapy, and a 3rd bin that took place between 2 and 2.5 years after the initiation of hormone therapy. Harper claimed that lumping the data together could blur out the changes that occurred within a 12-month period and might distort the results notably. However, all of that being said, Harper said that the main takeaway of Roberts' study was that trans women do ultimately reach, I think she said, parity with cisgender athletes. A cleaner version of what I just said says it's not necessary for all advantages to be removed. All that is necessary is for a trans woman to perform more like cisgender women than like cisgender men. And this is actually something that Harper and Roberts both agreed upon. They both emphasized that a total level playing field is never possible, regardless of the player's gender identity. Roberts says people who got testosterone at puberty tend to have narrower hips. If you're taller and have narrower hips, that gives you an advantage that probably is not going to change from testosterone blockers or estrogen. On the other hand, we have a lot of elite cisgender female athletes who tend to be tall and thin with slender hips, and we're not outlawing them. He also noted that physical advantages are not the only advantages that athletes have over some others. For example, LeBron James kids have access to the best coaches and the best facilities with the best equipment. They're going to have an advantage over somebody, and yet they're still allowed in the same competition. He also states that trans women athletes must maintain a testosterone level lower than 10 nanomoles per liter, which by the way is much, much higher than most trans women's testosterone levels actually are. Then Roberts continued and pointed out that cisgender women with polycystic ovarian syndrome and some other conditions can have levels 3 times that or even higher. He says that nearly a third of elite adolescent female athletes have relatively elevated testosterone levels, and female Olympians also tend to have higher levels than age-matched controls. He concludes by saying the playing field has never been totally level. Why would Donald Trump Jr. do such a thing? We know why he would do such a thing. Let's just, we all know. But I do want to wrap up this video by reading a comment by somebody named Rodrigo, who is the Deputy Executive Director for the National Center for Transgender Equality. They said Trump Jr.'s comments were another desperate attempt to cling to power by villainizing others. Transgender people live in every state and every community in this country. We are neighbors, friends, and family. But the extremists empower scapegoat transgender people, along with other marginalized people, to distract us from their failure to govern effectively. They attack rather than lead. That's why voters overwhelmingly chose a new direction toward a government where we honor each other's humanity. Beautifully said. Mwah! Chef kiss. This is not an attempt to save women from having their dreams taken away from them by trans athletes. No, this is not an attempt to make sports more fair. It's an attempt to demonize the trans community and give Trump supporters somebody to take their frustration out on. Which, by the way, is something this presidency has always done. They distract supporters from the damage they've done by becoming a mascot of hate, chanting the nastiest things that people were too afraid to say publicly. January 20th cannot come fast enough, bitch. Anyways, you guys, I think that's going to be it for today's video. Please make sure to give it a big thumbs up down below. Leave me a comment, say hi. I try to read all the comments. I try to respond to as many as I can, so definitely leave something down below. Make sure to subscribe if you are not already and you would like to be. And yeah, other than that, I think I'm going to go. Thank you guys so much again for watching, and I will see you in Thursday's video. Bye, guys.